Alright everyone, welcome back. I know it's been a minute since I uploaded, but today we're going to be doing a Fire Emblem Houses review. If you guys are wondering why my level is 1, I died off camera getting prepared for this video. But it's all good. It didn't matter too much. But for this video in particular, I had two games I really wanted to talk about. One of them being Fire Emblem Houses, and the other being Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. I think very highly of both these games, and I mentioned both these games in my Pokemon video. In fact, I think that both these games are the best two games in the Switch. Not joking. People call me crazy that I don't think Breath of the Wild's the best game in the Switch. No, it's these two games. Oh, there's Mr. Llama again from the last video. But where is the hole that I would like to dig? Trying to find the hole that I was digging. That's weird, I can't find it. Anyway. Yeah, so I also wanted to cover one of those games. This video, as you guys can probably tell, is going to be the Final Houses video. And we're not just going to be reviewing the game. I'm going to tell you guys why I think this game should have won 2019's Game of the Year. Before we get into the review, let's just get some backstory. Fire Emblem Houses was one of Nintendo's most anticipated releases in the 2019 year. This game did come out in 2019, July 26th. And Fire Emblem Houses will quickly become the most popular game in the Fire Emblem franchise, and it brought a lot of non-Fire Emblem fans into the franchise. Fire Houses itself marked a turning point for Fire Emblem, as it was the first time that the main series Fire Emblem game had debuted on console. Obviously, in this case, it was the Switch. And I gotta build this giant fucking wall. Upon the release of Fire Emblem Houses, it impressed many with its well-crafted story, its memorable characters, and its creative writing, and its innovative gameplay. So, before we get into review and spoil anything, for you guys who have not played this game, or would like to play this game, I recommend you guys highly play this game. It's Christmas is right around the corner. Get this as a gift for someone. It's one of the best games from the Switch. You won't be disappointed. I think it's the second best game on the Switch. You won't be disappointed. But into the category system, like last time. That wasn't iron. Like last time, there's gonna be a point based. There's gonna be a weighted system, where I say goes, and that's lava. Yeah, the four heavily weighted categories, if you guys don't remember, are gonna be the narrative, the characters, the gameplay, and the writing. And those are all worth 10 points. And then there's three lightly weighted categories, which are going to be the graphics / animation, the sound design / music, and the... Sorry, I'm lost in thought. Graphics / animation, sound design. Oh yeah, setting and environment. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for that pause. My mind is totally blanked. So now, that's all that away. Let's jump into one of Nintendo's best games of all time in Fire Emblem Houses. Starting off the narrative, you are a mercenary, right? Okay, so anyway, like I said from the Pokemon video, this game has a 120-hour-long story. So for brevity, I'm going to be simplifying it a bit. So, in Fire Emblem Houses, you play the role of a mercenary. For the sake of this video, we're going to call them Byleth. Byleth, along with their father, who is the head of a mercenary clan, starts having a strange dream. The Byleth has a strange dream. In a dream, you encounter a girl. She proclaims that her name is Sosis. She doesn't remember much else though. She's confused and does not know why we are seeing each other. The player talks to their father and realizes that this isn't the first time that they're having a dream. Without much time to think, they are notified of a battle nearby. Geralt, Byleth's father, as we mentioned, and the player rush to action and sees 3 young adults in danger, being Claude, Dimitri, and Edelgard. When one of them is about to die, the player jumps in the way and dies in her stead. Time seems to stop, and you have another talk with the mysterious girl, Sophis. She then bestows the power to turn back the hand of time for a short period. Using this newfound power, Byleth manages to fend off the attackers. The young adult reveals that they are all attending Officers Academy, which is at Garreg Mach Monastery. Garreg Mach is at the center of the continent of Folan. Garreg Mach is host to the Church of Seros, which is like the main church in the country. Folan is made up of 3 superpowers. To the north is the Kingdom of Fargus, which is where the Prince Dimitri hails from. To the east is the Leicester Alliance, which is where Claude is from. Claude is the Duke's son. To the southwest is the Adressian Empire, where Princess Edelgard is from. Anyway, Geralt gets recognized from one of the knights, and you both get dragged back to the monastery. At the monastery, the Archbishop Rhea seems to have a special interest in Byleth. She enlists Byleth as a professor at the academy and reappoints Geralt as the head of the Knights of Theros. As a new professor, you get to choose which class you want to teach. Your options are the Black Eagles, which is made of the Adressian Empire residents, Blue Lions, whose people are from the Kingdom of Fargus, the Golden Deer, whose students are from the Leicester Alliance. Depending on which house you choose, your story will widely change. However, for the first half of the game, the events that happen are very similar for each house. So we're going to divide the story into four different sections, one for each story route. For that, let's cover the Officers Academy. Byleth seems to enjoy his new position as a professor, getting to know all of their new students well. The first few chapters have you getting acclimated to the game and will start unraveling the story. Some characters tend to get more and more suspicious, with a lot of the main missions having direct relations to the Kingdom of Fargus, which one of the students' caretakers trying to assassinate Rhea, and another student's brother transformed into a demon. There's also a group led by the Flame Emperor who wants to demolish the church. They end up raiding the tomb. The Flame Emperor and their group has a powerful ally called the Death Knight, and they all end up raiding the tomb where the Sword of Creation is. Byleth manages to grab hold of the sword and fends off the intruders. It is later discovered that Byleth has a crest of flames inside their body, which allows them to wield the Sword of Creation. Crests are birthrights inside a person's body who gives individuals certain abilities. Being born of a quest is a very powerful asset. Moving on, there is eventually a big mock war between all the classes, which determines which class is the best. After your class wins, you and Geralt go out to save some students who are about to die. After you save them, one of the kids is actually evil and murders Byleth's father. Even after using Divine Pulse, the time traveling ability, Byleth can't save Geralt. Byleth then goes out for revenge. However, this is a trap, and Byleth gets stuck inside a dark realm. Celsus then reveals she is the god whom the Church of Seros worships. You two then merge, becoming a demigod. With Byleth's newfound power, she escapes and then finishes off the evildoers. Rhea then reveals she put the god inside of you, which saved Byleth's life, but also killed your mother. Rhea also wanted to see a god descend. Later on, the Flame Emperor is raided the tomb again and wants to steal crests buried there. After stopping them, it is revealed that Edelgard was the Flame Emperor the whole time. This sparks the war across the continent. The Adressian Empire invades Garreg Mach. The invasion is successful. Garreg Mach Garreg Mach and the Church of Seros, which houses the Church of Seros, was into hiding. Archbishop Rhea is missing, and Byleth was put into a 5-year coma. Let me get this redstone. So that covers part 1 of the story. And at this point in the story, it's going to divulge into 3 different story paths. I'm sorry, not to focus on the gameplay this time around. There's a point earlier in the game where you meet your class to agree to meet back at the Garreg Mach in 5 years. So after your 5-year coma, you meet back your class at Garreg Mach. The monastery is abandoned and you have to rebuild it. I'm going to be brief with the post-time skip stories for the sake of time. If you chose Blue Lions, Byleth will encounter a depressed and murderous Dimitri. In this route, you ally the Kingdom of Fargus and the Church of Theros in a war against the Addressing Empire. Dimitri is the focus here, you help him get over his trauma, and Dimitri turns into a good person. Together, you end the war and kill Edelgard. In my opinion, Blue Lions is overall the best narrative between the four routes, and this really helps Dimitri as a character. And Golden Deer, Byleth helps Claude not only end the war, but also stop an evil calamity called Nemesis. Golden Deer's route is a bit disorganized, but it is still a great time, as it has a lot of personality, and I think it's the most hand-drawn cutscenes too. Black Eagle's church route has the player go against the Addressing Empire and ends the war. At the end, Ray loses control of her power and needs to stop her rampage. Church route, in my opinion, the weakest route. The story isn't very unique compared to the others, and borrows a lot of the story threads from Golden Deer and Blue Lion's story routes. Then the fourth route is Black Eagle's Empire route, which has the player siding with Edelgard and conquering the country. This route ends with you striking down Rhea and ending the church. This route is my second favorite, and it's very interesting experience of story from the Empire side. Overall, the narrative is very compelling, no matter which story route, and it's a wonderful story full of themes. Depending on which route you chose, your story will be a bit different. The story isn't perfect at all routes, however, the narrative is great, and you can't deny like the sheer amount of ambition that goes into creating 4 unique story routes and having them all be very enjoyable. So this narrative is going to get a really good 9 out of 10 for me. I think this narrative is fantastic. Characters. This is the highlight of the game. The characters are fantastic. The cast of characters in this game are wide and varied, with each one of them having a compelling backstory and emotional story beats that enhance their development throughout the game. I'm not going to go to cover every character because that would take way too long, so I have to cover like 30 characters. I'll talk about some of the more important ones and some of my favorites. Byleth, the first one we cover is Byleth. For a blank slate protagonist, Byleth actually does a great job of being the lead for this game. They were born into the world to be very stoic. They never displayed much emotion. This is because the Archbishop somehow injected the goddess Solstice into your heart. The goddess has had a negative effect on how Byleth presents himself. In the role of professor, Byleth grows to enjoy the position and gets attached to their students. When Geralt dies, Byleth cries for the first time in her life. Following this, Byleth merges with the goddess inside of him and becomes a demigod. With their newfound power, Byleth tries to aid the church in fending off the Addressing attack, but is sent into a 5-year coma. Depending on which house the player chose, Byleth works diligently to help the church, kingdom, alliance, or empire. At the end of the 5-year war, Byleth is one of the leaders of the new Folan. Byleth also marries into the lovely life, which yes, you get to marry a character in this game, which is fantastic. Dimitri, the Prince of Fargus, is one of the first students that Byleth meets at the academy, and is the head of the Blue Lions house. Dimitri is at first a kind and mature, calm, and talented young man who seems to embody chivalry. Dimitri is the only survivor of the Duskar tragedy. During this, both of Dimitri's parents died. As a result, Dimitri suffers from I wrote this word down. Aguisia, Aguesia, and has survivor's guilt. When Dimitri learns of the Flame Emperor's identity, he snaps. All of his hatred that he's kept inside of him, floods up all at once. He is left in an unhealthy, murderous, almost mental state. This gets reinforced in the time skip. He's alone and he abandoned his heritage. He has lost an eye. All he cares for is bloodshed. All he wants is revenge. The only certain thing for life in his life is death. Dimitri, with the help of the rest of Blue Lions, undergoes a reclamation project. With this, he confronts his inner demons and comes to terms with his past. He lets go of his murderous desires and starts fighting for the right reasons. He strikes down Edelgard, ending the war. At the end of the Azure Moon route, Dimitri is a benevolent king, loved by his people. Edelgard, the next character we'll cover, is a princess of the Yggdrasian Empire. She is also one of the first students Byleth meets and is the leader of the Black Eagle's house. Edelgard is a very charming individual. She tries to use words and speeches to inspire people. She can be a bit blunt, but she is also very caring towards her friends. She is an exemplary student and a natural leader. Edelgard is secretly the Flame Emperor and has been plotting to attack the church for a long time. Edelgard strongly believes that the war is necessary and that the church must be abolished. Edelgard's current ambitions and personality are likely results of her traumatic experience at a young age. She was imprisoned along with her siblings and heavily experimented on. The researchers are trying to inject the Crystal Flames into a compatible host. Among all of her siblings, Edelgard was the only survivor. During the time together, Edelgard comes to depend greatly on Byleth. And Byleth helps shape Edelgard's personality into a more positive direction. It's so apparent that the way a player doesn't side of Edelgard, that she regrets that the two of you couldn't be together. When you go on the Crimson Flower route, her affection is seen even more when she drew a painting of Byleth during the time skip. In the end, Edelgard and Byleth defeat Rhea and rule over a new Fodlan. Claude. While I don't think Claude is quite as deep of character as his fellow class leaders, I do like him a lot. He is the son of the Duke, and the next heir to the Leicester Alliance. Claude is of mixed heritage, is often discriminated against because of this. Claude leans on a laid-back persona. He is extremely cunning and is constantly scheming to try to find out the secrets of the Academy. Claude cares greatly for those under his command, valuing their safety above all else. Following the time skip, Claude strives for racial equality and views war as a last resort. He would rather solve matters diplomatically rather through war. In the Verdant Wind route, Byleth takes Claude under their wing, and together they stop the war and stop Nemesis, a bad guy. After the war, Claude returns home to Elmira, where he tries to bridge the gap between Elmira and Fodlan. Rhea. Rhea is the Archbishop of the Church of Saros. She is the one that put the goddess inside of Byleth. Not much is known initially about Rhea. In fact, the mysteries about Rhea and the monastery draw a lot of people's attention. She is kind, benevolent, and compassionate. This is how she acts towards her followers. She is ruthless and dismissive of those who wish to go against the church. Rhea is quite lonely. She enjoys her confrontations with Byleth, believing that Byleth is the only person that she can talk to with herself. Rhea desires peace, so much to the point where she has rewritten history to ensure it. Due to Byleth's betrayal in the Crimson Flower route, Rhea becomes unhinged and thinks only of revenge against Byleth and Edelgard. In Silver Wind, where Byleth doesn't betray her, Rhea apologizes for her selfish acts and still wants to keep peace in Fodlan. She eventually steps down as the Archbishop and lets Byleth take control. Geralt. Byleth's father was the head of the Knights of Saros. Before becoming a mercenary, he was Knight of Saros before becoming mercenary. I read that kind of weird. It was because of Byleth's birth and his wife's death as to why he left the church. However, when Byleth gets hired to be professor at the monastery, Geralt becomes the head of the Knights of Saros. He handles this position well, before meeting an unfortunate end. He dies in the arms of Byleth. He sees Byleth cry for the first time in his entire life. He smiles just before he's gone. Gerald's death has a great impact on Byleth. It fuels their thirst for revenge. The memento Gerald leaves for Byleth is a ring which Byleth must bestow upon his true love. Gerald was a man of honor and deeply loved his family. Sosis. The goddess that lived inside of Byleth appears as a child. She is playful yet wise. She often gives Byleth advice and helps him by giving Byleth the divine pulse skill. Sosis and Byleth get trapped in the Dark Void, where their only escape is to merge. After this, Sosis no longer appears in the story, but Byleth will always remember her. Setef. Setef is Rhea's right-hand man, and initially he is strongly against Byleth, often having to be reined in by Rhea herself. However, through several trials, Setef comes to accept Byleth and even rely on him. Setef also has a younger sister, Flayn. He is actually their father, but this is hidden for most of the game. He is very protective of both Rhea and Flayn. In most routes, Setef and the Knights of Saros will join Byleth in their endeavor to save Fodlan. Sylvain. Sylvain is a student in the Blue Lion's house. He is a ladies' man, pretty much. He doesn't take a lot seriously. He is a little like Claude, where he puts up a lazy persona. He is quite intelligent and eventually just ditches his philandering. He strongly hates Crest as well. Miklon is an enemy that Viola faces. He is also Sylvain's older brother. Following his death, Sylvain only felt pity for him. Post time skip, he helps end the war. Dorothea. Dorothea is a songstress. Unlike most of the students at the monastery, she is a commoner. She is very flirtatious, and she does this because she believes that she needed to marry into happiness. She is the only commoner in the Black Eagle's house, and tries to stand on even ground as them. This is very difficult for her because she hated nobles ever since she was young. Because of her childhood, she developed self-esteem issues on par with her outgoing personality. Post-time skip, Dorothea helps end the war. Lysithea is a noble. She grew up as a child prodigy in magic. Like Edelgard, she was also experimented on for Crest. This explains their mutually white hair color. Lysithea is also the youngest student at the academy. She is a hard-working student with an unparalleled drive to learn. She hopes to grow as strong as possible, so she no longer has to burden her parents. Due to the experiments Lysithea experienced, her life is shortened, which she has come to terms with. She has to come to terms with her horrific fate. With the help of Byleth, she learns that the future is not set in stone, and fights on harder than ever. After the war, she lives out the rest of her life in peace. That was a lot of characters to go through, and that wasn't even half of them. They're all so good. Even though there are a couple of duds in this cast, most of the characters in this game are very well thought out and compelling, with unique personalities. Dimitri and Edelgard are my favorite characters in the game, and overall this is one of my favorite cast of characters in any game. Also, Lysithea, best girl, for those of you guys are wondering. So, characters. This is like the highest 9 out of 10 I can give, but I can't deny there's maybe 8 characters in this game who are just absolutely annoying. So, it's gonna get a 9 out of 10, unfortunately. Writing. No matter which route the player chooses, the writing remains strong. It can be a little awkward or cringy at times, but for the most part, the writing does a good job of enforcing narrative. The best part about this game's writing is that it highlights every character's stories, including their strengths and weaknesses in a gradual manner that makes sense and flows very well within the game's plot. For example, Dimitri is first shown to be a very friendly character, but it's alluded that he harbors a deep hatred. This sets him up to be a more ferocious person down the line, and it's delivered very well. Overall, the writing is great with a few minor hiccups, with its main strength being how well it writes characters. So I'm gonna give the writing a 9 out of 10 as well. I love the writing is great in this game. It's witty too. Gameplay. Fire Emblem House's gameplay is a grid-based strategy game. Utilizing your units, the player has to beat the challenges presented to them. Whether that be disposing of all the enemies or protecting a stronghold, or like capturing a certain objective. The units the player has access to are the characters that the player has acquired, depending on which house he shows. The player will get a certain set of characters, but don't worry, there are possibilities in the game where you can recruit characters from other houses. Each unit has its own strengths and weaknesses, and units can excel in a multitude of categories. This includes, but not limited to, swordsmanship, archery, axes, lances, fisticuffs, holy magic, dark magic, horseback riding, flying, authority, and armory. Throughout the game, you will be able to upgrade your units class to become more specialized in combat. The class upgrades enhance your abilities in combat and give you access to new skills. There's also a hub world for you to explore and socialize with all your friends. Garrikumak Monastery is fairly big and spreads out all the characters' minutes. Exploring it gives you access to more areas. In the monastery, you can fish, eat, shop, socialize, train, and compete in tournaments. Every character has a compatibility meter, which increases the more time they spend with you and you like characters. Everything I just mentioned circles back to the combat, which is amazing. Everything you do outside of combat has a direct effect on your performance in combat. It's amazing. This game offers a wide array of boards to play on, meaning that the landscape will often change mission to mission. To engage an enemy, you simply move your unit to a position to strike. The game will give you damage calculations before you lock in your move, and your turn will end after you performed actions with each of your units. Certain classes are also more effective against others. For example, archers are great against flyers, and mages are great against tanks. Overall, the gameplay is fantastic. It rewards good strategy, and every time I play it, it feels good moving units around and having to combat the enemy. Especially after I spent so much time getting my units to exactly how I want them to. Like, it's so rewarding when you decide that you want your unit to become a certain class at some point, and then you get there and they perform well. It's great. So gameplay, I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. Alright, so those were the 4 heavily weighted categories. So let's get into the lighter weighted categories. Let me take a drink of my water real quick. I've been talking pretty much non-stop. Sorry if I was going a little fast. I will leave the entire doc in the description if you guys would like to read this. And once again, I'm sorry I'm not focusing as much on the gameplay. It's just that I'm not winging as much as I was with the Pokemon video. So, and I want to make sure I deliver the script well. Alright, settings/environment. As I mentioned before, the game is set in the fictional continent of Foland, with 3 superpowers on the brink of war. It is set during medieval times, and the environments are great, offer a new experience every mission. The monastery is also a great place to explore. Unfortunately, Fire Emblem's main strength is in line exploration of environments, though the setting is good and the environments are no less intriguing. So grade, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. Graphics/animation. I have gone on record saying that Dragon Quest XI Definitive Edition has the best graphics in the console. I'm going to stand by that, but Three Houses is definitely up there. And the graphics help each area stand out a bit more and look more pleasing. Animation is great, in particular the hand-drawn cutscenes are spectacular. They are so detailed, and while there aren't that many, it is still very much appreciated. Like, they are so good. One of the best cutscenes in the game is when Dimitri discovers that Edelgard's the Flame Emperor, and he becomes unhinged. Great cutscene. Yes. Unfortunately, okay. Okay. The battle animations are also great. Sword slashes, and magic blasts look incredibly smooth and almost pop at you. Outside of the hand-drawn cutscenes, the regular ones are okay. Like it's like 3D model stuff. Like the lip syncing is good. Like it's nothing spectacular, but it's still good. It still works well. So I'm gonna give the graphics and animation a grade of 4 out of 5. Sound design/music, the last category. This game has great music, like amazing music. The battle themes are amazing and memorable. They are all very appealing to listen to. And the main theme, Edge of Dawn, is a voice song that works very well for this type of game, and highlights a lot of the themes and morals that the game is trying to get across. Sound design is also great. Connecting hits with arrows or axes feels rewarding. It really sells the impact of the attacks. This is also helped by the great voice acting in the game, and the VAs help make the characters memorable, and do a great job in terms of combat noises, like the grunts and the ah and the ah and the ah and stuff like that. That was terrible. But so this is normally like somewhere between a 4 and a 5, but because I was like, for the characters, I gave it a 9, even though I was leaning towards a 10. I'm gonna give this a 5 out of 5, because I do think this is closer to being like a perfect score than the characters. So the grade for sound design is gonna be a 5 out of 5. In conclusion, Fire Three Houses, in my opinion, is the second best game on the Switch, and was my pick for 2019's Game of the Year. I come back to this game a lot because of the absurd amount there is to do in this game. Each playthrough is completely different, and it's completely different. Like, it is absurd the amount of story that is in this game, and the amount of content there is. Like, even if some parts of the game like aren't polished as they could do, you gotta appreciate the ambition that went into a game like this. And I'm doing this video around Christmas for a reason, because I highly recommend that you get this game. You ask for this game for Christmas, or just pick it up for yourself, or get it for someone else. This game is fantastic. The second best game on the Switch. Fire Emblem deserves more. This game deserves more attention. It really does. So my overall grade is gonna be a 49 out of 55. Very good game. So anyways, just some channel updates for you guys. Um, thank you guys so much for 25 subscribers. It was a lot of fun getting there. Fairy Tale. I know I uploaded like 2 Fairy Tale videos in a row. I'm gonna try to get back on Fairy Tale. I've been very busy lately. I was signing up for college. I've been looking for jobs. I've been doing some other stuff as well. I as well. But yeah, I think that's about it. So next review video I'm not sure how the pace I'm gonna do these review videos, but I probably expect about one a month at this rate, because writing scripts for really big games like this takes a long time. I know I talked through it pretty easily, but still, like, it's very much like a hard process writing the script. I know recording it wasn't that difficult. Obviously, I wasn't even focused on the gameplay too much, and I really apologize for that. But anyway, I thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.